Welcome, everyone, to ALN Thursday at 4. I'm Mike Bordenaro, Communications Director for the Asset Leadership Network. And today we're very excited to have Chris Lyles. Chris is now Vice President of Planning and Asset Management. Did I get that right?
Oh, it's close enough. Asset planning and management.
Yes, asset planning and management. And we're going to talk about that title. And we're excited because Chris has presented with us in the past, and he's moved up the ladder at the Western Area Power Administration. And we'll be able to hear about how he moved up the ladder and what he's doing now. But first, we'd like to thank our organizational members. And my computer does not want to advance the slide to our organizational members, who include ABS Quality Evaluation as a patron and member, as is Onuma Inc. They have to stop sharing and start sharing over again. And this time I am not, no, that didn't work. So sorry, our technical director is not with us today, and whenever he's not around, it is definitely noticeable. So thank you for your patience as I call this up.
I bet you can make it happen, Mike. We have all the confidence in you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Here's our organizational members. And this month, the ALN Thursday at 4 is being sponsored by Uberlytics and its sister company, Mentor APM. They are now co-members of the Asset Leadership Network. Uberlytics helps organizations build better risk-based asset management programs. Mentor APM is a cloud-based asset performance management plus work software for complex organizations to improve on mission success, extend uptime, and deliver on digitization. So thank you for your patience as we got that. Now we get into the heart of the subject, which is talking with Chris. So Chris, you've presented at the National Academy of Sciences when we were back in the old days meeting in person.
That's right.
And your CEO, Mark Gabriel, has presented to us. He said everybody should be using ISO 55000. So we'd like to start with how you got to where you're at now in your asset management journey. So you give us a little background?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I've been at WAPA since around 2008. I started down in our Phoenix region as a project manager and a capital planner down there. And being a capital planner, you are always trying to look at data, hopefully that supports projects that you want to move forward. And you know, back in 2008, there wasn't any data, you know, to really use. So, you know, that was kind of the impetus for me seeing a need for asset management, even if I didn't know what it was called back then. And then I got into the customer service portion of WAPA, really being the liaison between WAPA and our wholesale customers. And then jumped into power marketing for a bit, and then eventually migrated over into asset management when asset management was stood up as a formal program at WAPA in 2015. And then was a AM specialist there for a couple of years, and then I got to jump into the lead role about almost 3 years ago now.
So ISO 55000 came out in 2014. So you guys followed up really quickly, and I guess you found ISO 55000 right away.
Yeah, if you look at our documentation that we have that supports our program, it's clearly identified that we strive to meet the intent of 55,000. The way we have our documentation laid out, the way we have all of our processes and things documented, it's pretty clear that we move that direction. Are we certified? We're not certified, just primarily because we're a federal agency, and the effort it would take to get certified would be greater than the value it would bring us as a federal agency with our customers. We're really customer focused at WAPA, so we just have to be careful on how much time and effort we invest in things that they find value in. So.
Okay, would there ever be a time when the numbers worked out that it would be worth getting certified?
Likely not from a federal perspective from our side, just primarily because we have around 17,000 miles of transmission line that we're managing. We have around 15 states, and WAPA has very few employees. Like we only have 1,400 employees total. Most transmission companies that do what we do would likely have in the neighborhood of 4,000 to 5,000 employees. So we are stretched really thin. So maybe at some point when the program AM program is really established and we don't have a whole ton of workload ahead of us, then we could potentially look at something like that. But right now,
so
we're not there.
That'll be never.
maybe, Mike. I don't know.
And then your colleagues at Bonneville and the Army Corps of Engineers created a informal working group, didn't you? What have you learned from working with your other federal agency colleagues?
Yeah, so our friends over at the Bureau of Reclamation, Corps of Engineers, Bonneville Power, we typically meet once a quarter, maybe 3 times a year, and just share best practices. What are we doing as far as evaluation of assets? How are we reporting those assets out? And what that has really shown to me is first that we're very fortunate at WAPA that we only have electrical transmission assets that we're dealing with. We don't have any of the generation assets. We don't have any of the other components that our friends at the other agencies do. So I feel very fortunate that we have a scope of assets ahead of us that is very within the realm of reason. Our other friends that are on the generating agency side, like the Bureau or the Corps of Engineers, there are so many moving parts to those assets, and they're really hard to get a handle on. And at least WAPA parts, at least they're stationary. They're electrical assets; they don't move. So we feel, but it's been a great experience with those friends at our other agencies, just because sometimes misery loves company, right? And since we've all been in development, it's really awesome to see how they've developed, and we can kind of steal some of their stuff that we find valuable too. So it's awesome.
What if you turned it on yourself and used asset management for fleet and personal property?
Yeah, so that's the direction that we are moving as well. When we first stood the program up, it was called transmission asset management or transmission asset planning and management. And we have since dropped the transmission part because we are getting into other assets that we see add value as far as shedding some transparency on when it comes to health and consequence, and even just how you plan and move these assets around, like fleet. So those are areas that we are getting into, even like network equipment and things that don't typically fall within the lines of what most people would think are assets within a transmission organization like us.
Okay. So as you get into these others, what kind of auditing, and with your existing, what kind of internal audits do you do that help you're following ISO 55000, or what are some, how do you manage it without the outside view?
Sure. Yeah, so there are a couple of things that we do internally to help us manage. One, we have an internal audit group that specifically looks at our own internal processes within WAPA, and obviously we are just within the WAPA walls as far as a functional program. So we are on the radar of that internal audit group. They ask us annually, what areas that we could potentially need help in, and we identify that, and they do their own internal audits and identify areas that we could get better in. And just on a monthly basis, we have a number of processes in place that we use for data cleanup and data quality, on the asset health side, just identifying data gaps, missing or bad data, and we have processes in place to correct that before it gets too bad and before we start spitting out erroneous information that consumers could be basing decisions off of.
Okay, so you do have systems in place. That's good. So then I wonder how your asset management is helping you deal with issues like sustainability and if it helps in addressing climate issues. Are you seeing any benefits in those areas?
One of the areas, I mean, I wouldn't say, because we're always operating to the standards of the bulk electric system, and those standards are kind of independent of climate. Essentially, we just got to be up and running and functional, be able to transport and transmit power with regard to consumers on the other end of that bulk electric power. But it's just really helping us. Our AM program is really helping us figure out where to invest. Like everybody, we have limited money, limited dollars to spend. Where are the most critical components? So criticality, and then tying that to health of the asset. So that's one area that this program has really, I think, helped WAPA with. Is back in 2008, 2009, when I was doing capital planning, a lot of those decisions were based on people's knowledge in their heads and talking to many different people. There really wasn't any clear identified scoring system that we used. And when we stood the program up in 2015, it really standardized how we evaluate information coming in from our field crews, the inspections that they're doing. It assigned a scoring threshold to these assets that is used consistently across all 4 regions at WAPA. And then, as one of the key components of good asset management is really understanding the consequence of that failure if an asset fails, so you can come up with the risk. Before, you would have to talk to 7 or 8 different functional groups at WAPA about these specific assets, and it was really hard to kind of conceptualize what that consequence looked like. And now we have a pretty standard process for gathering that data annually, assigning a numerical number to consequence, and overlaying that with our health and coming up with risk-based scores. So I think that's really just helped us really focus on the criticality of the bulk electric system, and that just supports any climate issues that may be changing the background that we are unaware of.
So we know about asset management failures with PG&E and how disastrous that has been. One of the things they're doing is setting up, I don't know the proper terms, but breakers so that they can shut down smaller areas and respond to wind conditions faster.
Yeah.
And then they're also doing a lot more cleanup along their lines. Is that asset management thoughts or activities that you're performing?
Yeah, so kind of along the lines of the first example that you gave, as far as resetting different relays and things like that, that can be accomplished more easily on the distribution side of a utility, and that really is beneficial for folks like PG&E. But WAPA deals only in transmission, so all of our lines are 69,000 volts or greater. Most of them are 230 or 345,000 volts, or even out in California, 500,000 volt lines. And you can't use relays the same way on a large scale transmission system like that. But to your second point, part of our AM program is the collection of field inspection results. And that collection, we inspect our lines at minimum once a year. Those inspection results are documented on a mobile device. That mobile device is GPS enabled. It knows right where it's at, so it knows what structure you're at. So the field crews that are inspecting those, they don't have to put much thought into making sure they're on the right structure, where they're at with respect to the rest of our system. It pulls up the structure data. They do their inspections, which include vegetation management. And if any veg issues are identified, then our vegetation management crews go out and deal with those veg problems as far as part of the inspection results.
Is this tower data something that happened as a result of launching the asset management program in 2015?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we've always inspected our transmission lines, but we really didn't have a great way of documenting the inspections, rolling that inspection data up into a health score for that structure itself, and then rolling it up into a larger health score for the transmission line segment. So that is really when um, the formal AM program kind of got into the weeds, for lack of a better word, on taking the data from the field and turning it into information that people could actually make decisions on. It's one of those things that we've always done the inspections, we've always documented, it may have been on paper, but now you can see it displayed pretty clearly on our GIS system, and it drives our veg management decisions as far as where we need to focus our attention at.
Excellent, excellent. So, how would you say the program has grown in the 6 short years? It seems like it's come a long way, or that's too much. What are some of the more recent asset management initiatives that you've put in place once you became vice president and had a little bit more authority?
Well, one of the frustration, well, let's say, one of the things that frustrated me back when I was a capital planner for WAPA is really not having a centralized place where you could go for asset information, and then having it in a position that you can actually make decisions off that data. And that's really where we've been moving to for sure. Like the last couple of years is, a lot of the data that we produce, or the information we produce from the field inspections coming in, is really awesome, but it's trapped in tabular format. And folks like us that are in asset management that work with it all day long, we can kind of see where the issues are, but it causes two problems. One, if it's in tabular format, it's really hard for other people to make decisions off of it. It's really not consumable. It's not appealing to look at. So we're moving, like a lot of folks are, to a different platform called Power BI. And it pulls in information from many different systems and puts it all in place, allows folks to drill down into the data as they want to, and visualizes it, so it uses our GIS maps, creates heat maps, things like that. And for me, what that does is it really helps the capital planners a lot, because it helps them kind of see where the issues are at on the system, and helps them prioritize projects based on our data. But second, and this is the most important part, I think, is that this data is now available on iPhones or tablets or whatever for our field crews. And really, the field crews are the ones that are inputting the data on the upstream side of this, and really feeding it all down to us. And without them in the past getting appropriate feedback as far as this is what your results look like, in a report, in a format that is consumable, they really had no reason to make their data collection better. And now they're seeing how that data is used, they're seeing how it lays out on a map. And I think it is encouraging some of our field inspectors and stuff to do a better job with initial data collection, and which just helps all of us in the end, right?
Excellent. I like to say that visualization of data allows people to say, I see what you're talking about related to some very complex subjects. So that really improved your decision-making capabilities?
Well, we're getting there. I wouldn't say it's perfect
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
This is something that we have all the we have all the formatting and stuff built. We have all the systems built. We are just getting ready to roll this out in the next 4 or 5 months, actually for people to consume. So we're getting there, and I'm really hanging my hat on it.
We'll have you back in a year, and you can tell us how it is.
Sounds good.
But while we still have you now, there are some other questions that are coming in, and they kind of tie in with something you said you had done earlier when you were doing customer relations, stakeholder involvement. ISO 55000 and one 4.3, I believe, and 5 other times. So what are you, as vice president of asset planning and management, are you having stakeholder meetings and with power companies that supply you? Do you think you're encouraging any of them to get into ISO 55000?
Yeah, a customer to WAPA is somebody that takes bulk electric from us. So we are essentially taking hydroelectric power out of hydro dams, out of federal hydro dams, shipping it cross country over our 15 states to end use customers, or those companies that distribute it. So Arizona Public Service, or we have around 700 customers that are likely people that you all pay your electric bills to in some areas. Those are our customers. So the reason stakeholder engagement is so important to us, and how it translates asset management data down to them, is anything that I do on the transmission side, or WAPA does on the transmission side, as far as projects and costs, directly impacts the rates that our customers have to pay monthly. So we readjust our rates usually annually. So they want to know. They want to know, why are we doing projects? How do you validate them? How do you justify? What's the data behind these projects that require them to be done? And as they're seeing our data, it hopefully gives them a little bit more reassurance that we're investing in the right areas. But also what it does is, most of our customers operating distribution systems of their own, so they have their own power lines that they're working with. So a lot of them have shown interest in, oh shoot, WAPA's doing this, and they're producing this kind of data using an AM program. We should look at setting up a system very similar to theirs as well, as far as asset management and leveraging what they've already learned themselves.
Excellent. And do you think any of them would be interested in a free presentation from the Asset Leadership Network?
I have no idea. It's really hard. On the federal side, it's really hard, right? With I gotta be careful. I'm not promoting certain things, or I don't want to end up in jail, Mike. I want to make sure I am making strides towards visualizing my data. I can't do it from prison.
Right. Well, we do this. We do these presentations and make them public for everybody. And
Perfect. Yeah.
Address that. So, but we're starting a an electric utility asset leadership board.
Okay.
And through that organization, we're going to be reaching out to associations and individual companies to brief
Gotcha.
executives. And somebody from the IEEE is interested in having you present to the IEEE already. So I'll tell you more about that later. But cool. You've got a wealth of information that's very useful.
But we have a bunch of limitations too. I don't want to represent us as having this perfection, because we're 5 years into this now, and 5 years in, you're like, oh shoot, now we know the limitations, and now we know how much we have to fix as well. So
yeah. So let's get back to your title. Yep. I love that it's asset planning and management. Were you involved in creating that title, or?
I wasn't involved, so I can make a couple assumptions. So looking back now, we're 5 years, 6 years into this. So if I was renaming it today, I would just call it asset management. But I likely know why asset planning and asset planning and management was used back in 2015. And it's all around, you guys probably hear this all the time, it's all around culture change. Getting the culture changed around what asset management is, how it can provide value, is one of the biggest hurdles I think that any AM program probably faces its first 5 years of life. So our main goal in life is informing our regional capital planning efforts. So we have 4 regions that are all doing capital planning. And so really, to help that culture change, we probably needed to include the word planning in the title initially, just to get people wrapped around like, oh, this program or this department helps support our capital planning efforts. And the same way with our customers. If we were standing up a new program and they didn't completely understand the value or the need, if we tied asset planning into the title with management, then it would be easier for them to make that leap as far as what the value and the purpose of the program was. Is my guess.
But it just makes sense because you can't manage something without a plan. And ISO 55001 4.1 says you shall have a strategic asset management plan that reflects the objectives of the organization. So it's an immediate tie to mission
Yep.
from your strategic plan. So I love the title. And then before we went live, we said that there might be some things that you said that were really good. And I think we've got a slam dunk here. We've got a question about if you're not getting certified to ISO 55001 and it's not worth the money and time, why is ISO 55000 so important?
Well, just the structure of it, and we see a lot of value in the structure, and the way our program is laid out really lines up well with 55,001, and it just helps us, especially with something new, and people are trying to get their brains wrapped around. Just having that structure has really helped. The one area. And I was just asked this yesterday. I was on the phone with my friends from Arizona Public Service talking about their AM program and what in the direction they're wanting to take it. And one of their questions was, how do you monetize the value of AM, and how do you know things are significantly different than they were prior to AM? And I think that's one of the challenges, that I've been working on with our strategy group at WAPA is, how can you help me figure out the monetary value of having an AM program in place, and where would we be without it? So that's one of the next challenges, I think, for the upcoming years, is figuring out what projects are getting worked or not worked that wouldn't have been around without asset management data supporting it.
Excellent. Well, the Asset Leadership Network, along with our colleagues in Australia, are working to develop a template for ROI. So there'd be categories of information, and
Okay.
all the ROIs won't be apples to oranges. They'll be in a format where it's the same and people can read multiple case studies and get a sense of the value.
Gotcha.
So we'll let you know about that. We hope to have a webinar in September. Maybe you can watch that and see some things that will help you identify how
Cool.
to report those value. And we have had a lot of questions. Many of the things that I was asking you were questions that have come in, and we've made it through all of them. We've gotten some good comments in the chat also. So I think we've covered everything we need to, unless there's anything that you wanted to say that I haven't asked you yet.
I don't know. I mean, this is the most fun you can possibly have, right? Where you're dealing with field crews, you're dealing with the actual, work, that is your main mission in life. But you're supporting the business side. So to me, asset management, I don't know. I would almost do this stuff for free, Mike. So I'm glad to talk about it. I'm glad to be with you guys this afternoon, and thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. You've been a highly informed guest, very passionate about your subject, and there were a lot of questions that I was asking came from people like Art Curlin, who has already done ISO 55000 at his university. Yeah, you're familiar with him. So thank you, and just wanted to thank Uberlytics and Mentor Graphics, Mentor APM for sponsoring this month, and thank our other patrons and organizational members. And then next week, one of the audience members who is making comments is Dr. Annette Kemp-Dern, and Jim Dieter will be talking with her, and we're really looking forward to getting a German perspective on asset management. So thank you, Dr. Kampfdern, in advance. And Chris, once again, thank you for supporting us in the past. And again, today has been very helpful and informative.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.